Oh, you came back again. I'd ask why, but I just don't care. Today's podcast is sponsored by Grimlick's Animal Avatars and Familiars for personages of a magical or sorcerous persuasion. Wow, they really picked a name that rolls off the tongue. Grimlick's stocks creatures of all sizes, from magical cockroaches, enchanted boa constrictors, all the way through to medium-sized cats and trick bears. All of these familiars are perfectly suited for enhancing the image of... honestly, familiars are so last century. I've been using the Scribone 8 Plus for a year now, and I'm very happy with it. What? Oh, go to Grimlick's Animal Avatars and Familiars if you want a ridiculous and glorified pet. Now get on with the podcast, which today features the usual lesser henchmen, Russ, Morrissey and Peter Coffey. Get on with it. The sooner you get started, the sooner it will be over.
Hello, and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Russ, aka Morrus, or Morrus, aka Russ, and it's a very, very special day today because it's Monday.
Woo! Wait, what?
Yes, and also for another reason.
I hope it's a better reason.
Because not only do I have my usual co-host with me, who is...
Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers, as always, completely and absolutely stoked to be here, Russ. Stoked, mate.
Well,
like a
we have a super special guest.
Really? Who's that?
And it's not even my first time on the show, technically.
So, listeners, if you could write in and guess who our special guest is.
No,
we'll get back to you next week.
You're the worst host. Worst host. No, everyone, please make very welcome our editor, Darryl Mott, who, in addition to editing this amazing podcast, also finds time to be a game journalist as well, amongst other things. Darryl, hello.
That is very true. I write the weekly News Digest column, which was actually just a temporary title I came up with, News Digest, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
But I write that for Ian World, and it's just stuck for like 2 years now.
And it's really super useful for this podcast as well.
Super.
I know.
It's very good, and you know what? It's a good name. You're expecting the news in a digested form. Blam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Peter's favourite naming convention.
Absolutely. It makes it much easier to guess what it's about.
Yes. So, Peter, what's caught your eyes this week?
Oh, very excitingly, there was a post on Reddit, which was...
That does not sound likely. A post on Reddit?
There was a post on Reddit, I know, hard to believe. But this one was all about multiclassing. The Gentleman DM's Guide to Multiclassing. And it went through in some length about the different ways and benefits of how one can multiclass effectively in 5th edition D&D, which, if you've never tried it before, can be quite interesting. It's very easy to accidentally break your character or make them less good, but this was a sort of a beginner's guide about how to go about it and different combinations that work. And yeah, that's quite nice. It's like gives you an experiment into sort of almost game designing without having to like change things too much. And I always like trying new and exciting flavour combinations. I never thought balsamic glaze and strawberries would work. Turns out I was totally wrong.
Okay then.
So, Darryl, what's caught your eye, mate?
Well, what's caught my eye is American politics.
Oh God!
No! Don't run! This is not that kind of politics. What it is? There was a recent election here, and there was a local election. And a lot of local elections in the United States, if they end in a draw after a runoff and blah blah, they got these rules. But they also do what's called drawing lots to determine the race, which is just if they're tied, they just pick randomly. Mm-hmm. And in California, there was a race where there were 110 voters, and 2 candidates got 51 votes each. So in order to determine randomly who would win, they went to one of the clerk's D&D sets and got a D20 to roll off.
And why not?
And not only that, but the winner won with a natural 20.
Oh, really?
Nice.
I think if you rolled a natural 20, you deserve to win. In fact, you deserve to get the office above the office you were going for.
Oh, nice. Like, improved results.
It should be like a ranking system. So if you were going for like... Oh, I'm going to try and remember my American political stuff. So if you were going for like a Senate thing, you would become president.
Interesting.
Instead.
So you sort
or a governor thing, or was that a different thing? I don't know. Don't explain it. I don't know. I don't.
Do you know what? It might work out better all told than the current system. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
however, this election was for the Byron Bethany Irrigation District's board seat. So
that sounds
not
fascinating.
exactly that critical of a position.
To allow such important things to be decided by the roll of dice. I'm shocked at the state of affairs today.
I know. So, Anyway, Russ, what's caught your eye?
Ooh, well, let me ask you some questions. Do you like D&D?
Yes, right.
Do you like castles?
Often, yeah, they're quite fun.
You guys live in England, don't you? Like have castles everywhere? Like you each have your own castle?
Yeah, I live in a castle. Yeah.
Englishman's home is his castle. Yeah, it's pretty much insane.
How would you like to play D&D in a castle?
Well, it's a bit old hat, but I suppose I could try it.
So you can actually do that if you've got quite a bit of money.
Is this actual D&D, or is this like LARPing and remapping people's swords?
It's actual D&D. It's actual D&D. So it's a Canadian company that set this up. They do it every year, and there's 3 events this in 2019 in 3 different castles here in the UK. I think last year they had them in different places in Europe, but 3 castles here in the UK. They get some they set some world class DMs, which tend to be sort of people like the Maze Arcana people or the Nerd Archie people and stuff like that. So sort of streamers and podcasters and things like that.
Yep.
And what you do is you pay up front, and you get to stay there for, I think it's 4 days. Yeah, 4 days. All accommodation, all food included, and lots and lots of D&D games run by these professional DMs.
And the pictures on their site are absolutely gorgeous. These rooms are like all laid out perfectly for exactly what you're imagining if you're playing D&D at a table in a castle.
There is a slight catch, though. Have you seen the prices?
$2,600.
I have specifically not looked at the prices.
Oh, we don't wish to ruin your dreams. Yeah, it's really quite expensive.
It's really not cheap.
If you got $2,600 per person lying around, then this is absolutely fantastic, and you should totally get on that.
Should we do some news? What about some news?
Go on, let's talk some news.
Okay, let's do some news. Right, let's have a look. What's in the news? Right, Starfinder critical hit deck. I always enjoy a good critical hit, and there was always one for Pathfinder, which essentially, when you got a critical hit, obviously in Pathfinder, normally you just do double damage.
Yeah.
A bit boring, really, that, isn't it? You can spice that up a bit. So what you got is a deck of cards, and when you do a critical hit, you take a card, and it gives you a critical effect. And it's also a fumble deck as well, I think, separately you can get. But a critical hit, and then there'll be 4 different effects on there. This was the Pathfinder version. There'll be a slashing, a piercing, a bludgeoning, and a magic effect.
Yep.
So now there's a Starfinder one. And I haven't seen any of the actual cards, but I'm assuming it's slashing, piercing, bludgeoning, and I don't know, just sort of energy or something. I don't know what the 4th thing will be on that one.
Something exciting.
Yeah, their damage types are kind of a lot different on Starfinder because they've got energy weapons and ballistic weapons and whatnot. But I've always loved that Game Mastery series for the decks and anything like that. Anything that adds more randomness to a game is always fun.
Yeah, I like cards, as long as you don't have too many of them. I mean, do you remember the, probably quite a lot of the Fantasy Flight Warhammer stuff? I kind of found that I had so many cards in front of me and tokens and stuff like that I might as well have been playing a board game. It took up so much space in front of me, all this real estate on the table.
Yeah, I mean...
So, an occasional card's all right, but not too many. So, sticking on the subject of Paizo...
Yes?
PaizoCon 2019 tickets are now available. So PaizoCon is obviously a convention. It's over in Seattle in the US, and it's on its 11th year now. And it's in May next year, 24th to the 27th. So if you want to head along there, and basically you get to hang out with all of the Paizo staff and loads and loads of different Pathfinder and Starfinder fans and all that sort of stuff, get exclusive product announcements. They do this big sort of banquet thing where they have a big banquet and they have people like Eric Mona and different people up on stage just sort of like giving big presentations and announcements and exclusive updates on upcoming stuff. So that is now available for booking online. Should you wish to go. I've never been. I would like to one day, but it's a long, long way.
It's in it's Seattle, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not just America; it's the other side of America. It's
that.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of America in Texas, and that is a long way from me too.
Yeah.
I
think I may be closer to you than Seattle almost.
Probably not, but yeah.
Maybe in travel time. Okay. What else is on the news?
Oh, right. Do you remember Daredevil?
I have some passing acquaintance with it.
Do you remember True Blood?
Not something I was big on. What about you, Darryl?
True Blood was... I was really into the Sookie Stackhouse novels before the show came on, so...
So you were reading them before it became fashionable. I understand.
Yeah, I'm a hipster. Okay. I'm an urban fantasy hipster.
Fair enough. So what did Daredevil and True Blood have in common? Pop quiz.
Deborah... Crap, I can't remember her last name.
And Woll?
Deborah
Yes.
Ann Woll.
Oh.
So she's in both of those shows, and now she's going to be in a brand new show being made by the company that owns Geek and Sundry and Nerdist.
Oh, yeah.
And it's based on D&D, with her in this... I'm not 100% clear on the format from the description. It says it's part procedural, part game, part graphic adventure, based on D&D, and it's got Deborah Ann Woll in a role as both Dungeon Master and Storyteller.
Interesting.
So I'm not 100% sure how that's going to manifest. But I guess we'll find out in February, because it's going to be on their Alpha online subscription service, which has some of the Geek and Sundry and Nerdist shows on it.
It's Alpha.
I think their parent company is Legendary, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. We'll find out in February exactly how that works out. But, they say it's set in a mysterious curio shop in the sleepy town of Bellbrook, even, called Relics and Rarities. And it combines gripping storytelling, thrilling gameplay, and a dash of the unknown as the cast completes puzzles, fulfills missions, and wields their chosen relics in ways that fans of RPG shows have never seen.
Interestingly, they've got people like a chap called Tommy Walker from Daredevil and Henry Danger, Julie Dennis from Lofty Dreams and What Would You Do, Jasmine Buller, Starter Kit, Vampire the Masquerade, Twitch's That Bronze Girl, and Xander Ginnerette, King of Nerds, Sagas of Sundry. So that sounds like...
And secret celebrity guests.
Secret celebrity guests. Nice.
Exciting.
Well, it sounds like an interesting drop-in, drop-out. I'm quite interested by what the whole graphic novel, did they say? No.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound...
Graphic
from
adventure.
what I can make out, it doesn't sound like she's just running a D&D game.
No.
It sounds like something more than that, but I don't... And it seems to be set kind of in the modern world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We'll find out, I guess, in February.
It'll be interesting to see what unique selling point she gets to.
Maybe it's like a sort of Mazes and
podcasts.
Monsters type thing, and the players end up in the D&D world or something. I don't know.
Or maybe something like the Gamers, where there's in-universe and there's out-of-universe.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that, yeah. Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah. Well, we shall look forward to finding out about that. I think, February 4th it comes out?
Yes, indeed.
Oh.
Okay, what else is in the news?
Onwards.
Oh, this is a interesting one. You know, Greg Stafford died recently. We mentioned that a few weeks ago.
The guy who did Call of Cthulhu, Glowing for a Runecrest, all that sort of jazz.
Yeah. So
very big respected topic, yes, yeah.
His masterpiece, is what he refers to as his masterpiece, was King Arthur Pendragon, role-playing in legendary Britain. So this was originally published, decades ago. And the game has passed
1985.
The game has passed through various owners since. Chaosium originally, Nocturnal Media.
Went from Chaosium to White Wolf.
I actually typed this earlier.
Green Knight to White Wolf to Nocturnal.
Yeah, Chaosium, Green Knight Publishing, White Wolf Publishing, and Nocturnal Media. Now returning to Chaosium, its original publisher.
Nice.
So Steve Wick spoke on behalf of Nocturnal Media, who until recently had the rights to it, on the transition back. And basically, I'm not going to read it all out because it's quite a long one, but it's quite a touching little story about his brother Stuart Wick and Greg Stafford himself, both who sadly passed in the last couple of years. and how they all feel it's right that that the game go back to Chaosium, and that Chaosium be the one to sort of like spark, the new flame and bring it back to life.
Oh,
It's quite. I think that's worth sticking a link in the show notes to, because it's quite a touching little anecdote there, which I don't want to read it all out, but it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's a story of dueling toasts between Stafford and Rick, and it's really a beautiful story. And also, Nocturnal did run a Kickstarter last year, I think, where they brought it up to a 5th edition for Pendragon, and now Chaosium's releasing a 5.2 edition update to the rules edition to Pendragon.
By 5th edition, you mean 5th edition of
5th edition of the Pendragon rule set, not D&D 5th edition.
No.
See?
Oh, okay.
So this is the problem we run to, because Peter and I always just called it. You call it 5th ed, and I called it 5e.
Yeah.
And then you just say the words 5th edition there, Darryl, and I automatically jump to D&D. Do you know what I mean? It's just this slightly annoying kind of way things have worked out on how basic, normal, colloquial reference to D&D. Well, shall we move on with the news?
Yes, let's.
Okay, next in the news, Beowulf and Greeks. Not at the same time, but they're both in the same news item. So the former creative director over at Cubicle 7, John Hodgson. Cubicle 7's recently relocated to Ireland. John Hodgson is up in Scotland, I believe. So he's no longer with Cubicle 7, because he presumably didn't want to relocate to Ireland. I don't know why. But anyway, he started a new company of his own. And it's called Handiwork Games. And they've announced 2 games so far. The first one is Hellenistica, which is a Greek D&D 5th edition setting by Ken Hite.
Oh, there's a lot of those come out, haven't there? Because we've had one on Guess the Kickstarter.
Yeah, we mentioned it a while back.
Twice. Yeah. Well, we've had 2 on Guess the Kickstarter, actually.
Yeah.
Or there's been at least 1 on Guess the Kickstarter and 1 also released.
And then we got the video game developer who's starting his own company that's doing a Greek-themed setting, too.
Yes, there's that.
From a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And also there's a few Roman and Egyptian ones out there, too. So people do seem to be like delving into ancient history for a lot of their settings. Which I think is pretty bloody awesome, actually.
Yeah. It'll make a change from Fantasy Europe.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I
think Greek counts as Fantasy Europe, doesn't it?
Well, sort of, yeah.
But
it's from the classical age rather than like pseudo-medieval, and that is quite a different flavour and setting for a game, in my opinion.
I think the description actually calls this one Hellenistic age.
So, presumably about, your full-on classical antiquarian? No.
They've got quite a good little tagline for this game. Live fast, love well, leave a good-looking mosaic.
And Peter facepalms.
And that's with Ken Hite, I see.
Yes.
Yep.
He's obviously an industry veteran responsible for a lot of really, really good stuff. He's heavily involved with Pelgrane Press as well, with a lot of their Gumshoe stuff and Knights Black Agents and all sorts of things. So that will probably be awesome.
Yes.
I'm sure it will probably come to Kickstarter as well. I'll be amazed if it doesn't.
Absolutely.
So try and forget
Beowulf game looks interesting too.
Yeah, so the other one's Beowulf. I was just going to say, try and forget it before the Kickstarter, though, Peter. Otherwise, otherwise our game won't work.
I can't make that promise, Russ.
Beowulf is the other one. A mythic setting. This one is slightly different because it's for 1 DM, again for 5th edition, D&D 5th edition, 1 DM and 1 player.
Oh, interesting.
It says, one of the oldest recorded stories in Western Europe, a tale of hero against monster, is a setting and rules set for D&D 5th edition, designed primarily for duet play, 1 GM and 1 player.
Okay, no, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
I wonder if this is going to start being a trend for 2019, because this is the 2nd or 3rd time I've seen duet play suddenly start coming up.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely demand for it. It's like just trying to synchronise schedules with other people. That's hard. Yeah. No. Okay. So if you can't have a regular D&D night, or you find yourself, I don't know, parents of young children, and you both want to play D&D, then this could well be a fantastic setting for you. So yeah, I welcome this expansion of diversity in role-playing. Fantastic.
So if you want to know what these things are going to look like, so John Hodgson did a lot of the art in the One Ring RPG and Adventures in Middle-earth and all that. So I assume the art style is going to be very similar to that. And that's some gorgeous, gorgeous art.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And he's very good at creating art which really conjures the setting, has exactly the right style and feel for the setting, which I think is always really important in an RPG book. Because if you mismatch the art style with the setting, I think it can be quite jarring.
Oh, absolutely.
And there was one neat thing I saw in the release on their website. There's actually a third game they're launching that's a board game.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Forest Dragon by Rory, age 9.
Oh.
And Hodgson's son designed the game.
Wow.
He's 9 years old. And he's doing the art along with his little brother, Ben. And John's actually helping him out, like making it all professionally. But it's still this game about a dragon, and there's already 3 expansions planned. It's kind of cute.
Cool.
I mean, it's exactly the kind of story you'd expect from a 9-year-old designing the Forest Dragon.
Yeah.
It's like going into the forest and befriending a dragon.
Right.
Why not? And why not?
Moving on. Tech Noir. So this was a Kickstarter back in 2011, which overreached on stretch goals and kind of like flaked out on many of the deliveries of many of the sort of expansions and source books and adventures and stuff.
Yeah, they got about 2/3 of it shipped, but
yeah, I mean that happens quite a lot with Kickstarters and stretch goals. You've got to be so careful with those. It's so easy to get caught up in the, in a successful Kickstarter and think, oh, this is really working. If I promise something else, then it will go up even more, and then you get caught up in that ever-increasing figure without realising you've just tied up the next 10 years of your life producing a series of books, which people are going to be clamouring for.
However, this is a good story. This is a happy story, though.
It is. What do you want to tell it, Darryl? Since I'm reading this off your article.
Yeah, what it is Tech Noir didn't quite finish fulfilling its things, but now Dream Machine Productions has acquired the rights to Tech Noir, and what they're doing is they're actually making the books that were promised as stretch goals and giving them for free to Kickstarter backers of the original Kickstarter from 7 years ago.
That's pretty awesome of them.
No. Oh, really? Has it been that long? Wow.
2011 was the Kickstarter.
Oh, goodness. So I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of legacy stuff because many people's lives will have changed in the meantime. But no, it's really good that they're taking on the property and honouring the original promises.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what that's going to cost them just to do that, because I assume they themselves haven't received any of the sort of funding capital from the Kickstarter.
Seems very
most likely not.
So that's coming out of their own pocket as well.
Yeah, and they're also taking up the line, and they're going to start expanding, writing new material for it as well, starting in January 2019.
Yeah,
and it's actually a pretty decent setting too.
Oh, there we go. Fantasy Flight Games, Legend of the Five Rings. More material coming out for Legend of the Five Rings. They've announced another source book and adventure. This is Enter the Shadowlands, and it covers the lands south of Rokugan and contains details and adventure seeds for the entire corrupted lands, from the festering pit of Fu Leng to the Daylight Castle.
Okay, that would be in Legend of the Five Rings, all the most dangerous places. The idea being that you have sort of this semi-Chinese/Japanese Orientalist empire, and then you have a very large wall, which is guarded to keep the bad dudes on one side and all the things that you quite like on the other. So everything on the wrong side of the wall is the Badlands. So this is a source pack for developing those.
It's a bit like Hadrian's Wall, really. Except Hadrian's Wall doesn't seem to work. Damn it. I saw a Scottish person the other day.
It's very inspired by that, or the Great Wall of China.
Yeah,
and
I personally have gone with the Great Wall of China as the most obvious one, but that is perfectly within his rights, I suppose, to say mean things about Scottish people who have done nothing to him except give him money.
They have done many, many, many things to me.
Only because you asked them nicely.
Yeah, this source book, it's 144 pages, and again, if you pre-order it from their website, you get art prints, like A4 sized. No, sorry, not A4. 5x7 art print cards, and it's Fantasy Flight, so the art is gorgeous.
Yeah, if there's one thing Fantasy Flight does well, it's production values.
But yeah, it covers the Shadowlands and the Wall and Crab Clan territory, which they maintain the Wall.
Yes.
So there's also an adventure as well, Mask of the Oni.
Ooh.
Which puts players on the trail of a blood speaker as they uncover the centuries-old secret buried in the fallen castle of the Hiruma family.
And it's a little bit more than just an adventure, because it's like adventure booklet, map,
tokens,
and a bunch of tokens. 50 little cardboard tokens.
Awesome. So this is these are available for pre-order, and they are both slated for a release in the first quarter of 2019.
Fantastic. We shall look forward to seeing more of them.
Those thefts at Essen Spiel we've talked about 2 or 3 times now.
Yes, yeah, like a shocking turn of events. People went and robbed all the traders and stole their takings, which I can imagine could well have put several games companies quite close to the edge of going over, or going under, rather.
I would have thought so, yeah.
So
the company that runs Essen Spiel, they're planning some meetings. That's decisive. They're planning some meetings.
I was hoping Russ would try to pronounce that German name.
Do you want me to?
What German?
Please.
Okay. Here we go. Our second favourite game in all the world, where Russ attempts to pronounce the name. So, Friedhelm Mers Verlag.
That's actually shockingly close.
Thank you very much.
Sure, sounds a bit more surprised now.
But you are right, Darryl. I did kind of conveniently skip over the name semi-deliberately because I know that pronouncing names is not my forte. So they've planned some meetings where they will decide what and if we will change anything at all. But we will certainly remind the exhibitors to take better care of their cash registers. Ouch.
Yeah.
That's a bit,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's
kind of the second quote coming from
the
them,
second
too.
quote, is even worse. The second quote, we also appeal to the exhibitors in the future not to hire cheap stand staff that way, that they are partly paid with exhibitor tickets. So basically, it's all the exhibitors' fault. That's what they're saying.
So I think there's a name for this, isn't there? Like something for us. Victim blaming.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for. Victim blaming. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, you should have looked after your stuff. We just have, like, the building.
Yeah.
Like, looking after your stuff, that's on you. Like, security, why would we provide that? Okay. That's interesting.
Well, I didn't write it in the article, but in the actual report, they talked about what security measures they do have at Essen Spiel. And it's apparently they have about 50 plainclothes security that are hiding in the crowd, but no actual marked security. No one's in uniform. No one's in like in a staff T-shirt or anything like that.
So no visible
security
deterrent.
T-shirt.
Yeah.
No way to report problems to people quickly. I mean, sure.
Exactly.
I'd be quite interested in what their anti-harassment policy is, because how are you supposed to report problems of, I don't know, somebody being awful if there's no one to talk to? Are you supposed to take matters into your hands?
I don't know. I mean, I've never been to it myself, so I'm not really sure what the setup's like. But
I
do believe they have they do have staff because they have people checking for badges at the entrances, but they don't have any marked security like patrolling the floor or standing anywhere.
And it is a
big,
big convention, that one as well.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people will still like try and do stuff, but I think there is something to be said for like occasionally just having people wandering around, even if they're just being nice to people and having a look at stalls. Because, like, yeah, if you've got plainclothes as well, then it's like, I don't know, it just seems, well, I don't know.
I've got a better idea, Peter. Rather than asking, we're definitely have to suggest this to the really considerate management of Essen Spiel. Instead of having the plainclothes people wear security uniforms, why don't they insist that all the thieves wear burglars' uniforms with like stripy tops and sacks saying swag?
Oh, but Rusty, the thing you have to remember is like this gets people in from all over the world. So how will the French people be able to be distinguished from the burglars?
Wow.
The berets.
Wow.
They got a beret and a cigarette sticking out of the corner of their mouth. They're French. If they don't have the beret, they're a robber.
I can see the emails from French listeners coming in already. Archaeologists have found a 4,000-year-old board game in Azerbaijan. It's called 58 Holes, or Hounds and Jackals, and although it's been found in various places...
Oh, I thought it'd be a game of talisman. Well, like 4,000 years is about the length of time it takes to play a game, so it's not very small.
I suppose, yeah. Ooh, cutting satire there. Fighting.
What can I say? I have favourites amongst board games. I have games that are not favourites.
This has been found across the Middle East in various archaeological digs, but this is kind of one of the oldest examples that have been found. 4,000 years old is a pretty old thing.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest tabletop or board games that we've ever seen. Is this one? And they found it a couple of different places. They found it in the pyramids.
Yeah.
So apparently it was pretty popular throughout the whole Mesopotamian region.
There's that Roman D20 that keeps showing up. Someone discovers it and posts it in the news or on Facebook or somewhere, like once every sort of 3 or 4 months. Yeah. Like it's a brand new thing that no one's seen before. And it's been coming up for about the last 10 years. Every 3 or 4 months. Oh my God, check this out. The Romans had D20s.
I always wonder if it's the same one over and over again, like that mimetic cycle, or if it's they keep finding different ones.
Yeah, no, I think there's quite a few of them, yeah. I think some of them are repeated and some of them... But that's not 4,000 years, though. That's not as old as this thing.
Yeah, that one is, I want to say 200 BCE.
Yeah,
wow.
So it's half the age of that. Okay, I think that's probably it for the news. Is there anything obvious I've missed that either of you can think of?
Nothing in Strange Mind right now.
No?
Hasbro's starting a water park.
Oh, go on then, if you want to...
Water park?
This is the second announcement Hasbro has made about getting into sort of this entertainment complex, like physical buildings. First, they had a deal with I can't remember the name of the company, but they do like kind of Dave and Buster's type things. Americans will know what that is, but it's like arcade and bar and restaurant all built into one, and this is all going to be themed on Hasbro stuff. This one, however, is a water park that's going to be opening in 2022, and it's going to have a Magic the Gathering themed water slide.
A Magic the Gathering themed water slide.
How does that work? So what? There's like pictures of cars on the inside of the tube, or
I assume it's going to be based on the stories that they have in there. But the joke in the article I've got is that it's a blue mana waterfall.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting.
But I guess we'll see in about 4 years when it actually opens.
Yes, indeed. Who knows? It's a long time. Who knows what might happen?
Right. You know what time it is, don't you?
What time is it?
You do know.
What
It's time for our favourite game in all the world, where I tell you the name of a Kickstarter and you try and guess what it is from nothing but the name.
Oh, so not Twilight Imperium 4th Edition then?
No.
Okay, well, I suppose we can play this one as well.
Let's play this. Yeah, 2 each. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Right then. Numero uno. Let us begin with... It is The Vagabond's Cyclopedia.
Oh, the Vagabond's Cyclopedia.
Cyclopedia.
Oh, okay. Well, this sounds like... Obviously, it's a fantasy supplement, I'm going to say. And I think it... What is it? It might be a Monday one. It's got options, certainly. It will be a list of all sorts of exciting things and encounters that one could have, like the sort of information that one would like to have if one is out on the road. But I suppose if I was going to go for it, then it would be probably some sort of supplement for 5th Ed D&D, and it will have a sort of guide to tricks, traps, and random encounters on the road, and for people that are travelling places.
So, it is for Vagabonds of Tifed.
Oh, okay.
Not D&D 5th edition.
So...
And it's an enormous character supplement overflowing with hundreds of new character rules, tables, guidelines, and suggestions on how to play as a vagabond.
So it's not it's Vagabonds of Tifed, they're doing it for 5th edition?
No, it's for Vagabonds of Tifed. It's a supplement for Vagabonds of Tifed.
Oh, okay, supplement for Vagabonds of Tifed. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, fair enough. Oh, okay, that's quite interesting. I've actually run that game, so interesting stuff. And so what is it? Supplement for it? How I described, rather than being for 5th Ed?
In the way that I just read out just now, which you clearly just ignored.
Attention.
In exactly that way.
I was completely not paying attention, Russ, largely because my brain was switching gears because it was not for 5th Ed D&D.
I see.
But it happens.
So would you like me to read it out again to you, Peter?
Yes, please. That'd be lovely.
All right, then. It is an enormous character supplement overflowing with hundreds of new character rules, tables, guidelines, and suggestions on how to play as a vagabond.
Interesting.
So it's just like it's basically a player's option book for Vagabonds of Diffed.
I understand. It's just like the whole idea behind Vagabonds of Diffed is it's supposed to be like how it was sold originally with a Kickstarter about a year and a half ago, is that it's powered by the apocalypse meets old school Renaissance. So with the old school Renaissance / revival, there's very much a bias towards rulings rather than rules. So I'm not entirely sure, especially with a system as simple as essentially the bare bones apocalypse roll 2d6 add mods, why or how it would work. But I'll have to look at the Kickstarter to know fully. Thank you for drawing it to my attention.
Okay then. Moving swiftly on, Darryl.
Yes.
Are you ready for your first ever round of our favourite game in all the world?
Darryl does at least know how this is played, which
Darryl,
is nice.
yes, we don't have to explain it to him. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think I've got the handle of it. Let's go ahead and give it a shot.
Okay. All right. This is just one word, this one, because it's one of those ones where the bit after the colon tells you what the first word meant. So you just get the first word, I'm afraid. Are you ready?
Oh, boy.
It is.
I'm ready.
Vindion.
Vindion.
Vindeon.
So this is like in Red Dwarf, that episode DNA where they manufacture a chicken vindaloo monster. This is a supplement for Starfinder to add that race to Starfinder, the Vindaluvians.
A genetically engineered life form, a gilf. Well, I loved Red Dwarf growing up.
So now I want a curry again. I had curry last night. I had leftover curry for lunch today, and now I want another one. Blimey.
Yeah, I honestly, I got absolutely nothing on Vindion other than more joke answers, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately...
I like yours, it sounds plausible.
Unfortunately, you have scored...
If I had to take a wild guess, it would probably be some sort of high fantasy city setting for 5th edition or Pathfinder.
I like sci-fi for it myself, but yeah.
Possibly.
So, what Vindion is, and you've definitely scored about minus 1,000 points there, Darryl, I am afraid.
Woo!
Yep. It's a fantasy RPG.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not actually that useful, this description here.
What comes after the colon?
The completed book will contain 275 pages in the standard 21 centimetres by 29.7 centimetres format. Its illustrations and text, apart from the first picture, will be printed in black and white colours, and its cover will be printed in full colour. Do you now understand exactly what it is?
So they're going to produce a role-playing game book, is what I'm taking away from this.
Not only that, the PDF versions of Vindion and the accompanying adventure will have sepia-coloured illustrations and inlet borders, and their book covers will be in full colour. They're kind of burying the lead on this one.
Yeah, it's...
Well, at least we know at least we know the format.
They want money for this today.
now that I've already been scored, I'm looking it up now, and it looks like it is a sort of low fantasy. Basically, I got everything I could possibly get wrong. It looks more low heroic fantasy, very Tolkien-esque inspired maps here.
I think the true test on one of these games is, would I rather be playing the description? I think I'd rather be playing one about genetically engineered life forms in Red Dwarf.
What I will say, that description is not the Kickstarter creator's fault, because I've just looked at the Kickstarter itself rather than the column, and there is an introductory bit of text there.
Oh, thank goodness.
You are an adventurer born in the Fourth Age, an age marked by uncertainty and strife. Whereas the article literally just launches straight into what colour the book is. So.
but you know what? It's like, I'm not trying to be harsh or stuff, but with fantasy you really need to have like a definite idea of, like, everyone sort of knows what a fantasy is right now, and what they just said was, I am a fantasy book. So I can see why talking about the production values would be an attractive alternative.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's what that is. The world is not healed. The elves, dwarves and humans have just begun to recover and rebuild after the devastation wrought by conflict and change. There you go.
Yeah, the Kickstarter looks very Tolkien-esque. Yes,
it does, doesn't it? It does look very Tolkien. Anyway, moving on. The next one is... I don't read the title of this one, but I don't think there's much point doing it as a around in the game. It's Wave 1 of Adventure Books for ASA.
That's a good title. That's a solid title. I hear that title, I know exactly what I'm getting.
Okay, all right, Peter, are you ready?
Yeah, hit me.
What is the Adventurer's Prayer?
Well, the Adventurer's Prayer, that sounds to me like it would be almost like an in-character document detailing some sort of common theme or prayer said by adventurers, because that's what the name suggests. But that would be a very odd Kickstarter, so I suppose then thinking about how one would make this, then like it would be a series of in-character, like what I would hope it would be, right, from this title, is it would be a set of like cues or like tables or something to help you generate at random an in-character religion and have all the various things. So like, if you roll a D1000 and you get like 001, it's animism, and then you roll further on these further tables and you actually end up having a totem spirit. As you roll at the other end, you're basically like an atheist, or you're like a pantheist, but you believe in like the Zoroastrian style. Yeah, that would be the sort of thing I'd want from the Adventurer's Prayer. Guide to generating your own in-character religions.
Well, you lost 10 points for every word in that, and that went on for quite a long time, so I estimate you're somewhere around minus 1 million points now. Because every
Maths
word
has always been your strong point, hasn't it?
every word dug you further and further into the hole of wrongness.
But I think
the Vindiluvian monster was closer.
He was in deep space.
So, have you heard of the Serenity Prayer?
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Courage to change the things.
Change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's the one, yeah.
Right.
You've heard of that, haven't you, Pete? You're looking at me puzzled.
I am, because
You've never
I
heard
don't
of that?
see the connection. I have heard it.
Oh, okay. You have heard it.
It's
well,
like
what if there
known.
was an adventurer's version which said, the dungeon master grant me the dexterity to flee the things I cannot slay, the carrying capacity to loot the things I can, and the courage to roll for initiative. This is a full-colour poster with that on it, with a nice picture of a mountain and a dragon in the background. Well, the last ones, they're all... I think they're really easy because they're very... does what it says in the tin titles. I'm trying to find one that's slightly harder. Good. Yeah, but whichever one...
Why would you do that to Darryl? What did he ever do to you? Look, just because you do these every week, it doesn't mean that they're actually easy for us.
Well, okay. I'm going to go with this one. I think you'll probably get it, Darryl. But... what, or get something close to it. What is the Lost Hall of Tyre? Tyr.
That sounds like good old-fashioned dungeon crawly adventure. Most likely, I'm going to say multi-edition, going for Pathfinder and OSR. Possibly a 5e as well.
So it's for a game called the Dragon Heresy role-playing game. I'm not personally familiar with it. It's an adventure, 112 pages long, full colour, with a detailed workup of a Viking town of... Oh, it's our second favourite game in all the world, where Russ gets to try and pronounce something. The Viking town of...
Yes?
Isfjall. Isfjall.
Isfjall. Okay, yeah, cool.
Isfjall.
Yeah. I was thinking it must be something like that, because Tyr was the Viking god of war.
Yeah.
So,
but Lost Hall immediately put into my head, this is the Lost Hall. It's a ruin that you're exploring.
Well, it's kind of more of a mini setting, because it's usable as a sort of home port or jumping off port for adventure for an extended campaign, sort of like a home base kind of area. It's also got rules for overland journeys in the wild north, and several adventuring locations, and a quest to discover the Lost Hall itself.
And this is for the Dragon Heresy game.
For the Dragon Heresy game, yeah. I think you get about...
Not heard of it myself, but I'm glad that they're getting
I think Darryl gets about 5 points out of 10 for that.
Oh, good work. Romping to victory. Well done, Darryl.
Yes, I think Darryl has won. Our favourite game in all the world.
Turned it
this
around
week.
from Vindiluvian Monster.
Right, I think that's it for the game. Hello, thank you for calling the Adventurers support line. How can I help you?
So there's only the two of us left, and the only loot was this funny-looking deck of cards. What's going on?
A deck of cards? Well, that seems odd. What level are you?
I'm Ave. What level are you?
9th.
Wow, that seems high for just a token. That must be a magical item of some sort. Sorry, this is my first day. I'm trying to figure out what it might be. Can you tell me anything about the cards while I'm getting this pulled up?
Well, there's, how many cards?
22. It's not any game I've seen.
Give me that. Are you even proficient in gaming cards?
Well, my background says I get to pick 2 games, and I never did, so yes, I am.
Hang on, slow down. This might be dangerous. Don't do anything with it until I can, get this pulled up.
Well, I just rolled my proficiency in gaming cards, and these aren't for any game.
Okay, I'm looking it up right now.
The deck's talking to me. It's asking me how many cards I want to draw.
What?
No way, it didn't talk to me, and I'm proficient.
No, you're not.
Hold on! Don't do anything.
It's very insistent. I'm going to stay free.
No! Don't do anything. I'm going to see if I can get a supervisor.
This first one says talents. Wait, what the hell? Where did my sword go?
I told you, please don't.
My turn. I'm going to draw a card.
Please stop. Don't touch the...
Wait, I've still got 2 more draws.
No fair, I found it.
Guys, this is an artifact. I've got it pulled up here now. Do not draw any cards. I've got a supervisor available in just a couple of rounds, and she can walk you through what to do. So please, just hold.
This one says throne. Oh, I've got a D to a castle now. Brilliant.
My turn.
Seriously, this is very dangerous. Please hold for the supervisor.
This one says knight.
Ah, what?
Who the hell are you?
I am your sworn knight, sir.
Please stop drawing cards. You don't know what...
No, wait, this deck's amazing. I want my cool stuff. I said I'd draw cards.
Where is my sword?
For the love of gods, please put the deck down and wait for the supervisor. I haven't even been trained for high-level artifacts yet.
Oh, sweet, this card says Jester. I can feel like I can get better at my job by 10,000 points, or I can draw 2 more times.
Ah, good. You said 1 card and that's it. Just take the XP and don't draw any more from the...
No way, he got a knight in a castle. I got almost that much XP from the last encounter.
Do you have my sword?
No, but my sword is yours to command, my liege.
This thing isn't even enchanted. What level are you?
Would you guys please just...
4.
Oh, what a waste.
I'm drawing 2 more cards.
No!
Idjit? What do idjit mean? I don't know what that word means.
You were the fighter and dumped int in the first place, didn't you?
What's an int? Ain't they talking trees?
For copyright reasons, no, but please do not touch the...
I'm gonna take this card.
Oh, this. I don't care what the benefits are, it's not worth this.
This one done said void. What does that mean?
I think it's time to do our topic of the week.
Oh, what is our topic of the week?
It is nearly the end of the year.
It is.
So, with that in mind, I think we should look back over the year and look at what the top news items of the year were.
Well, we've been recording for something like 28 weeks now, and it's certainly been an interesting. I've learned a lot about role-playing games.
Yeah, so we've been recording for 6 months roughly now. Of course, the year famously has 12 months in it.
Yep.
So obviously we've got 6 months of news prior to our launching our podcast as well. Fortunately, EN World has been around for 20 years, so we have all that news.
Oh, phew, that's a relief.
Lucky, isn't it? So what I have done is I have taken the top news items, and by top I mean the ones that got the most views. In some cases, I've combined news items where, for example, I don't know, Waterdeep, Dungeon of the Mad Mage had like 7 different news items and stuff like that into one news item, just for the sake of this chart, and worked out what the top news items have been of the entire year. Then I ran into a slight problem.
Oh,
Everything was D&D.
They were all D&D, yes. So what I then did, I thought, I've got an even better idea. I'm going to make 2 lists. So we have two lists of the top news items of the year. The one is the top D&D news items, and the other is the top non-D&D RPG news items. So general RPG news items.
Okay, yeah.
That way we get to cover both. Yeah, so over the year, we published hundreds and hundreds of news items. So this is really a scratch on the surface of all of the RPG news that's gone on throughout the year. So there's bound to be tons and tons of stuff that isn't going to get into this list, some of which is quite major, but this literally is the top 10 out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of news items.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's do the RPG ones first and then the D&D ones after. How about that?
Oh.
All right.
Okay, so the top RPG news items of 2018. In 15th place, the 15th most viewed RPG news item was RPG Esports. Formerly D&D Esports, became RPG Esports. This was announced late this year. It was an online esports tournament which involved various, mainly video game streamers, I believe, rather than actual role players. But there were a couple of role players in there, which took place live streamed on Twitch. And there was I think it was a $5,000 cash prize for the winner.
Yep.
Ooh.
So this took place.
Play D&D.
This took place back in. Was it October that took place?
November.
Yeah, it was
November, and then the first couple of weeks of December.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was number 15. Number 14. Somewhat surprisingly, I didn't think it would be that big a news item, but the RPG Now brand being retired. So obviously, Open Bookshelf is the company that owns Drive-Thru RPG, RPG Now, Drive-Thru Comics, Drive-Thru Fiction, DM's Guild, a whole bunch of those community content creator stuff.
They've got a war game brand.
Yeah, tons and tons of sites. But essentially, they're all one site. They only actually have the one website. And depending on what URL, what web address you use to visit it, you get a different skin. So if you go through it via the RPG Now address, you get a different look than if you went to it via the Drive-Thru RPG address. The RPG Now skin kind of concentrated more on indie titles, whereas the Drive-Thru RPG was more on the big sort of hardcover, big releases and stuff. But OBS has decided to retire the RPG Now side of it because under 1/10 of people used that particular portal to the site. They said that had been coming for years and it was just about time to do it. Put it off to pasture.
Yeah, I think they said over 5 years it was Drive-Thru was growing and RPG Now was shrinking.
Yeah, exactly. And given that they're the same site, I guess it's literally just a DNS entry, but even so, I suppose for branding purposes, consolidation is a good thing, I guess.
Yep.
So that was number 14. Number 15. 13. Number 13.
Is this how numbers work for us? Pick a direction and stick to it. You can do it, old buddy.
Yes.
I believe in you.
Pretty much every major tabletop gaming convention in the world reported record attendance.
Woohoo!
Basically, tabletop gaming on a whole is clearly on the rise. And along with that, every single convention, we're looking specifically here at UK Games Expo, Origins, and Gen Con, all of which reported record attendance this year. We don't have exact figures for all of them. Eschen Spiel hides its unique attendees figure, as does PAX Unplugged. But we got a basic idea with the largest one is Gen Con, followed by Essen Spiel, followed by UK Games Expo, stroke Origins, which leapfrog each other each time one of them has a new convention. And then PAX Unplugged. We don't really know the figures for that, but it looks like it's probably about half the size of Origins at the moment. But all of them are getting busier and busier and busier every single year on year, which is good news.
Escapism's never been so popular.
It is good news for us as gamers.
Absolutely.
Yep.
More people, more fun.
Yeah.
Well-established fact.
Number 12.
What's next?
Number 12. Gail Gygax. Gary Gygax's widow is being sued. So originally there was a deal between Gail Gygax and the sort of Gygax Trust to license out the remaining IP of Gary Gygax. Not Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, because Wizards of the Coast owns that, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. But everything else.
Legendary Adventures and
all that stuff,
a bunch of the characters and NPCs.
And a whole lot of unpublished stuff as well. was going to be licensed out in order to be used for video game properties. Also, there was a Hollywood movie producer. So the Gygax estate partnered with Tom DeSanto, who produced X-Men, Transformers, and stuff like that. And he's the person suing her, claiming that they formed a partnership to exploit like the Gygax brand. But then it was an exclusive partnership that they formed. And then he alleges that she then went away and tried to negotiate a separate video game deal without him, for which he is suing her for $30 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 11, The Expanse RPG Kickstarter. One of the most successful Kickstarters of 2018. It certainly funded very, very quickly indeed. It gives you the opportunity to go and run around in James A.S.A. Corey's award-winning series of science fiction novels. They're using the adventure game engine, which is found in a whole bunch of fantasy games like Blue Rose and Modern Age, and they're taking it together to create like the universe of The Expanse. There's Belters, Martians, and you're just trying to deal with spaceships, solar colonies, adventure and intrigue. And definitely very exciting. I'm looking forward to actually seeing that come through.
Yeah, I backed that one, so I can't wait to get my hands on that.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be good, man. It's going to be good.
I think also, did that make it into the top 10 most anticipated RPGs of 2019?
It did.
It did, yeah.
It did.
Yeah. Definitely looking forward to that. Okay, next one.
Number 10, we have Steve Jackson's The Fantasy Trip, which this was Steve Jackson Games, one of their very first products they released way back in 1977, I believe.
Ooh, way back.
Yeah, it was the very first product from Steve Jackson Games. It's a fantasy role-playing game, and Steve Jackson licensed it out at one point in time and has finally gotten the rights back, ran a Kickstarter that's been successful, and the book is now out, I believe. And the specific story was an interview with Steve Jackson over the fantasy trip and its history, as well as the revival.
Well, certainly a big bone to all the OG gamers who were playing back in the 70s and 80s who really loved it, and it hasn't seen a lot of love since, as I understand. Not a lot of support for it.
Right. Should we move on to the actual top 10 now?
Yes. Coming in at number 10.
Coming in at number 10.
Well,
Ooh. I've just looked at my list. There's two number 10s.
Whoa, we don't like you talk about that from around here.
Right. So number 9.5 was Evil Hat Productions announced a large scaling back of their product offering for the near future. They did a bit of financial review and examined the different sales of all their different product lines, and they've ended up having to postpone or cancel several products and lay off staff, which included Carrie Harris, who was the head of marketing, Chris Hanrahan, who was the head of business development, and Brian Patterson, the art director, all of which are parting ways with the company. Basically, they've put a hold on most of their non-role-playing products for now. Some of the sort of role-playing products still going ahead next year. But it's interesting that that's a different story to the whole everything's expanding thing that you get from the reports on the conventions.
Yeah.
One of the speculations that's been going around with, because there's been a couple of companies that have announced scale backs.
Yeah, another one of those is coming up as well at number 7.
Yep. One of the explanations that's been floating around with a lot of these is some of these companies have been trying to expand into other areas besides role-playing games. And because Evil Hat was producing, I believe, 2 or 3 different, they do the Dresden Files cooperative card game, and they're trying to expand that into other card games as well.
Yeah.
Into board games, and I think that might be where some of these companies are running into problems, is they're trying to move into an industry that they may not have as much experience with.
Sure. I mean, I can see the temptation, because if you look at RPG Kickstarters, then you look at board game Kickstarters. The latter, they're like an order of magnitude bigger than the RPGs in general. And you can see the temptation to want to release a board game or a card game or something like that, because there's so much more potential there to really sort of blow the Kickstarter doors off.
But, and those overall sales numbers, too, even outside of Kickstarter, it's almost an order of magnitude more.
Yeah. So I can see why, but yeah.
Yes, coming in at number 9. What has to be the 6th edition of Savage Worlds to come out since 2004? 2003? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, we have Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, the game that everyone loves so much that they keep on coming back to it. Yeah, it's a hotly anticipated Kickstarter. It came through, a lot of backing went in. They have some absolutely gorgeous full cover books with like collector's editions and so forth. So yeah, and they've also have a world builder's guide inside it. They did the Kickstarter in October, and so we're looking forward to seeing some of this again. One of the hotly anticipated Kickstarters of 2019.
Yes, indeed.
Wasn't it number one last week on the most anticipated games too?
It did
Yes,
indeed
it is.
get number one on most anticipated games, just edging out, I think, Pathfinder 2.
Pathfinder second.
Right.
Yes. It'll be good news for dice manufacturers everywhere, because say one thing for the Savage Worlds, you need to have lots of dice.
Darryl, can you tell us what number 8 is?
Number 8 is The Witcher. The Witcher is the role-playing game from Artalsorian Games, based on the popular dark fantasy world that's set up. Main protagonist is. It was designed by mother and son design team Lisa and Cody Pondsmith, and it came out this year to very good results. And it looks like it is based on the novels as well as the video games, because it's licensed through CD Projekt Red, who created the video game, and they're also the ones creating the Cyberpunk 2077 video game as well, which is Artalsorian, which, as far as I'm aware, the two licenses happened independently of each other.
I've got to admit, I am super unfamiliar with The Witcher. I know absolutely nothing about it. Although I do know that Superman is now playing him in a movie or TV show. A TV show, I think.
The Netflix television series that's it's based directly on the novels, which the video games happened. They're kind of an epilogue to the novel series.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Henry Cavill's in that, yeah?
Yes,
Nice.
he's playing Geralt.
Sweet as.
Okay.
Definitely keep an eye out for that, then.
Number 7, Robotech RPG. So this is like two stories, really. So initially, towards the beginning of the year, Palladium announced the collapse of their Robotech RPG Tactics Kickstarter. Robotech is it's like a sci-fi thing, obviously from the name, with like alien invaders and mecha and stuff.
It's a giant mecha based on it's a re-editing of the anime series Macross that was done by Harmony Gold back in 1985.
A thing of which I know nothing. Anime is really just not my thing.
I know most of it because of the interaction between the Robotech license and Battletech.
What happened was essentially Palladium ran out of money. They had various waves of rewards for their Kickstarter, and apparently they spent all the money on the Wave 1 rewards. And the Wave 2 rewards, which have a worth of something in the region of $500,000, they weren't able to fulfill. So, reactions pretty much as expected. Angry backers, people demanding refunds, people talking about lawsuits, all sorts of stuff, people venting online, that sort of thing. The usual sort of thing that happens when a Kickstarter collapses. But then there was a twist to this. Later in July, Strange Machine Games announced a brand new Robotech role-playing game. Totally separately.
Yes.
But also based on the same Macross Saga source material that you just mentioned there, Darryl. But they also have something for the backers of that failed Palladium Robotech RPG Tactics Kickstarter.
Yeah, at the time they were allowing you to, I believe it was get a discount on the upcoming board games and RPG products that they were releasing
actually,
if you ordered through them.
Wave 2 backers of the failed Palladium Kickstarter would get a complete box of Robotech Ace Pilot board game free of charge if you bought the new RPG.
That's right. Yeah, that was their, I believe it's a deck building card game.
Yeah, I don't know what it is
they
exactly,
released.
but yeah.
Going back to number 8 once more, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. So what we have is we've got a Grim World of Perilous Adventure, which is Cubicle 7, who have recently moved to Ireland's take on the very old classic, which was originally with Hogshead. Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. It's a career-based system. There's lots of dice. I haven't actually had the chance to play it or read the rulebook properly, but I can say they're using 10-sided dice, a tune-up version of the D100 system, and it is absolute carnage amongst the players of the game that's going on in the Iron Masters Club, which I go to on a Monday. They're losing like 2 characters a week minimum each, and I'm just waiting for the TPK to.
So it definitely holds up its legacy as Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Then.
So that was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4e at number 8. So number 7, Darryl, would you like to tell us what that is?
Number 7. John Wick Presents lays off its 7th Sea staff. Could you have made that more of a tongue twister on that headline, dude? Seriously.
I can try.
Don't test him.
Well, what happened? John Wick Presents was in a similar situation as Evil Hat, which we talked about before. They had started going into board games, tabletop games, and had eventually overextended, and they looked at their finances and realized that they really needed to scale back a lot of their production and a lot of their upcoming release, and had to unfortunately lay off, I believe, all of their staff except for John Wick.
Which is interesting because the Seventh Sea Kickstarter is the second biggest tabletop RPG Kickstarter in history, with over $1 million raised.
Yeah, it was the first one to top $1 million for a tabletop role-playing game.
And only one has done so since, which we'll get to later.
They actually had a second Kickstarter for that, Seventh Sea Katai, which was an Asian theme on the Seventh Sea role-playing game.
And that did not do so well. Yeah,
it got about $20,000 compared to the what was it, 1.3 million? Oh yeah, 1.3 million on the original Seventh Sea Second Edition.
I suspect they kind of expected to replicate the success, maybe not quite to the same extent, because obviously that was kind of a, you know.
Yeah, they were probably hoping for,
but they were certainly hoping
to three-quarters of a million, and they ended up with 200,000, which that is a very, very good showing for a Kickstarter. But when you're hoping to use the profits from that Kickstarter to roll over into other projects, which not every Seventh Sea had a lot of products coming out that were not Kickstarted first. They weren't stretch goals or anything else. They just released that, and plus they also were launching that. They had a publishers program similar to DM's Guild and Storytellers Vault for Seventh Sea as well.
Yeah.
So I think they were hoping to roll all those profits together into something along with, they had the War of the Cross board game Kickstarter that they ended up canceling. So I think just all of those started piling together, and they weren't getting the same growth that they were expecting, and so had to seriously scale back. And now they're looking at licensing deals to continue the Seventh Sea brand.
Okay, shall we move on to number 6? As I say in a mildly dramatic way. Number 6. So this is just various things kind of rolled into one, actually. So I kind of tried to combine all the different things, bits of information we get about stats about the RPG industry into one topic here.
Yep.
So we get virtual tabletops tend to give us stats like Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, and then we get information from Wizards of the Coast telling us that D&D's growing, 30% year on year for I think like 4 years in a row, has 15 million tabletop games, all that sort of stuff. So it's basically, this topic is more just sort of like the general news about the growth of the overall gaming industry and how D&D is still dominating it, like massively so. I'm looking right now at the Fantasy Grounds stats, but this is reflected everywhere, so this is fairly typical.
Yes.
So D&D's got like 65% of the market there, and the follower is Pathfinder with 12%. So that's the difference between positions 1 and 2, and then Savage Worlds coming in at 6%. Now, if you look at different charts and different things, like Roll20 will have slightly different stats, and ICV2 will have slightly different things again. But that is pretty much it. It's 5e. Pathfinder, and then you might get Savage Worlds or Star Wars or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a margin of error and some shifting around between numbers, and you also see some differences in Roll20 Fantasy Grounds because of who has licenses with who.
Yeah.
Because Fantasy Grounds will have licenses with some companies that allow them to produce direct-to-material for the game license that you can purchase through it. So that'll encourage people to play those games on those platforms over the other ones. But still, you look at these numbers and compare them, it's like margin of error difference between, like you might see this one has a little bit more here and this one has a little bit less there, but it is still, this is D&D's market, pretty much.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think Paizo are making a very, very solid showing there in the face of that, because what I don't think has happened, I don't think 5e has drastically cannibalized Paizo stuff. I think 5e has brought new players into the hobby, and that's where its explosive growth is coming from, especially with help from Critical Role and all that sort of stuff going on. So, it probably has taken some traffic away from Pathfinder. It's bound to have done. I don't think it's like a killer blow or anything. I don't think it's massive.
Well, there's still clearly a lot of people very interested in Pathfinder.
Oh, absolutely,
and the unique experience it offers.
Oh,
they're different experiences.
Yeah, it's got 12% of the RPG market. It's massive. I mean, we say only 12% because we're looking at 5e with 65, but 12% of the RPG market is an industry-dominating amount. It's massive. It's a lot.
That's twice the amount of Savage Worlds, which is the next biggest competitor.
Yeah, and that's just on the Fantasy Grounds thing. Like, Savage Worlds doesn't even show up on the ICV2 charts, does it? Whereas Star Wars, I think, is number 3 on ICV2's charts.
Yeah.
Also, I've noted, as always, the top 2, like 5e and Pathfinder, they're basically both Dungeons and Dragons. 2 flavours of Dungeons and Dragons hold the top 2. So if you added those together, D&D, or a variant of D&D, pretty much dominates the entire market.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it runs between, I've actually run the numbers and added up on quarterly I've made a big spreadsheet about this, and it ranges between 75 to 80%, no matter where you look at it, is some sort of D&D or D&D derivative, either Pathfinder or OSR, or something that is based on the D20 system, OGL.
Well, it's quite interesting just seeing how D&D 3.5 and 4e are still on those charts. All right, should we go on to the next one?
At number 5, the only major international incident that I recall being produced by a role-playing game company, it's White Wolf Publishing and the various changes. Probably the biggest issue is where they came horrifically off the rails in terms of taste, common decency, and just generally writing books like decent people. We've got the whole issue of the sections on Technia, in addition to a variety of other things, meant that White Wolf, currently owned by Paradox Interactive, was essentially folded up into Paradox Interactive things, and they're going to do a fairly large change in staff.
Complete change in management.
Well, hopefully...
Pulled 2 products from released in order to re-edit them for content.
Definitely a big concern.
When I made this list, it wasn't just that. I combined another couple of bits in that as well, because White Wolf dominated the headlines a couple of times. There was also a period when they actually had to release a statement where they had to deny that they supported Nazis. Which I think if you've gotten to the point where you're having to actually release statements denying or supporting Nazis, your PR has gone very, very, very wrong.
An hour-long live stream.
We did
a live stream.
Not a written statement, not something someone bashed out and say, yeah, we don't support Nazis, soz. But no, they actually had to do a live stream.
Shall we move on to number 4, which I believe is Darryl's turn?
Yep. Number 4 was something that we extensively talked... Well, both of you, extensively talked about last week. The most anticipated role-playing games of 2019.
Yeah, that always ends up being a very, very popular article. Mainly because I think a lot of RPG companies link to it in order to try and get people to vote for them and all that sort of stuff. So you get a lot of people following on.
And then you've got the people bragging when they end up high on the list. It's like, hey, we're the most anticipated. We're the number 2 most anticipated.
So number 1 was Savage Worlds.
Yes.
Number 2
Pathfinder 2.
Yeah. I got in at number 10 with Judge Dredd, which I was quite pleased about.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we did talk about that in great detail last week. Right, number 3. Yes. Number 3 was the Ennies 2018. So obviously the Ennies take place at Gen Con every year, and the winners get announced in August, which is what happened this year. And the Ennie winners 2018 proved to be the 3rd most read general RPG article of the year, which is gratifying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that was number 3. I figured that would have been number 1, because that's one of the things that Ian World is most known for is the Ennie Awards, as well as the news coverage.
Yeah, but then when you look at what number 1 is, I don't think you'll be surprised why that's number 3.
Well, yeah, but...
So that was number 3, the Ennies 2018. Number 2, Peter, I believe it's your turn.
Here we are, the penultimate, most popular non-D&D RPG-related article of 2018, The Strongholds and Streaming Kickstarter.
Which, to be fair, is slightly D&D related, but it's not officially D&D related.
It is, I'll be honest, this is very D&D related.
Yeah.
Oh, super, absolutely. It's Matt Colville, who many of our listeners will potentially know has a man on the internet who gives you advice over YouTube on how to run your games. He has introduced his Kickstarter in February 2018, which raised, something like $500,000 in the first 5 hours, which is a lot of money.
Closed on $2.1 million.
Yeah, it is currently the record holder by about $1 million.
That is strong.
I believe it's also in the top 10 of all gaming Kickstarters, non-video game gaming Kickstarters. So anything tabletop board game related, it's in the top 10 there, I believe.
And also hasn't announced that it's losing any staff yet. And hopefully won't. Hopefully won't. Yeah. So Strongholds, the book, is out now, by the way. At least in PDF format. It came out earlier this week. Kickstarter backers got it, and then it's available to buy in PDF format from Matt Colville's website. And there's already conversations going on about it. Generally, a fairly positive response to the book.
Yep, which, to be fair, was designed to help support archetypical D&D classes by providing them with rules for creating your own mansion / castle.
I haven't got it myself yet, but I will pick it up probably when it comes out in physical format rather than PDF.
Which
Absolutely.
I find it interesting that the highest grossing Kickstarter for role-playing games is a supplement based on building your own stronghold and castle, which, if I recall correctly, was one of the worst selling supplements that Wizards of the Coast put out for 3rd edition, was their castles and strongholds source.
Well, the thing with this is the Kickstarter was called Strongholds and Streaming, and the important part was the and streaming. So what the Kickstarter was mainly for was Matt Colville's YouTube series, and they wanted to set up a studio and do loads of really bigger, better things with that whole video format and stuff like that. And that's what I think a lot of his backers, were in for. So I suspect that the book itself was a smaller fraction of that Kickstarter.
All the stretch goals, I think, those were related to his streaming channel, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, so that was number 2. So we are now on to the number 1 most viewed, most popular general RPG news item of 2018.
I wonder if anyone could possibly have guessed that the number 1 story would be Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Yes.
What? No.
Yeah, there's a 2nd edition of Pathfinder. Did you not know?
Really?
No, it's absolutely shocking. The second largest role-playing game announcing its first new edition in a decade since release.
Ooh. Nice.
Yeah. So they announced that earlier this year, and they've got a great big playtest going on at the moment.
Yep, and still ongoing, even though they have stopped the regular... they're not going to be updating it regular anymore, but it's still going to be available, and the surveys are still open as well.
Yeah. I'm playing it myself, but I'm only halfway through because I started to lag behind for various scheduling reasons. So I'm only halfway through the playtest material.
Absolutely.
And it really seems like they're kind of going in a different direction than 5th edition entirely in how they're evolving. They're going a little bit more towards these sort of crunchy rules.
Well, that's pretty much where they're trying to put their stamp, isn't it?
Yeah, they're going for the crunchier side of the compared to the more narrative side.
Yeah. And I think that's a wise decision to differentiate themselves from D&D 5th edition. Otherwise, if they're just seen as, doing the same thing as D&D 5th edition, why would you choose Pathfinder over the flagship game?
Yeah,
exactly.
They have to be doing something different. And I think positioning themselves as the more crunchy, slightly more advanced, sort of, slightly more difficult game is maybe the right strategy for them.
Yeah, it depends on whether you prefer rules or rulings. There's definitely arguments for both sides.
Absolutely.
That is something this is an area where I'm definitely okay with the both sides argument.
Yeah, I think that's a fair place to say that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Pathfinder. I liked D&D 3.5 when it came out. I played it to death. It has its problems. Pathfinder 1st edition and D&D 3.5 totally breaks at high levels, which I hope they're fixing with 2nd edition. But I haven't had a chance to play test that, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
I played a bit of 3.0, bit of 3.5. I played like a session of Pathfinder, which due to the GM was so dreadful, I was like, nope, I'm going to do something else now.
Well, if you play 3.5, you pretty much play Pathfinder. It's the same. It's the same engine, isn't it? It's
it's the same rules with a lot of fixes.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was the most popular general RPG news item of the year. Pathfinder announcing Pathfinder 2nd edition. So the reason we split off the D&D news items is because they so dominated the charts that the number 1 item in the general RPG thing, Pathfinder, would have come in at about number 5, and then none of the rest would have featured in the top 10.
Okay.
So, D&D dominates the discussion that much. So that's why we split off the D&D news items to their own charts.
Yes.
So, as before, I've got 15 of them here, and I've checked the numbers, and they are all correct this time.
Woo!
There are actually 15.
Yay! Good work for us.
Yes, I counted to 15 once today, at least, if not twice. So, and number 15 was the Beadle and Grimm Platinum Edition Waterdeep Dragon Heist set.
Oh, that was a really, really pricey box set for Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Yeah, so that was announced, earlier in the year and was released at round about Gen Con, I think. But it cost $500 for this box set, which contained 8 books, a whole bunch of maps, fold-out maps, a custom GM screen, some miniatures, encounter cards, handouts, all sorts of props and stuff like that. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous set, but wow, that was...
I did that was pricey. Price breakdown per item, and you are getting what you pay for, but you are paying a lot for a lot of stuff. It is worth every penny if you can afford it.
Yeah.
Premium product, premium price sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's for the same sort of people that are going to play that D&D in a castle, I imagine.
They can play D&D. They can play Waterdeep Dragon Heist with their Beadle and Grimm Platinum Edition set in a castle in the north of England. And quite frankly, how atmospheric are you going to get?
Yeah. Okay. Number 14, Peter. Do you want to take us into number 14?
Coming in at number 14, it is a complete blast from the past. We've got Goodman Games are remastering, reintroducing, bringing together, keeping the Borderlands and...
Into the Unknown.
In Search of the Unknown.
Yep.
Search of the Unknown and The Keep on the Borderlands, 2 absolute classics from first edition D&D, which I'm going to have to say is from beyond before my time. But no, they've got
modules B1 and B2.
Modules B1 and B2. Back in the days when there were sufficiently few of the things that it was actually possible, maybe even desirable, to be able to label them and thus be able to refer to the exact product that you're talking about. This conversion has been done by Chris Doyle and Tim Wodzinski, and it's essentially taking these classic modules with their very old school Gygaxian flavour and converting them through to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So very useful for people who want to keep the simplicity of 5th edition D&D, but also introduce this sort of thing to people who've never had a chance to play it before. Certainly looking at the comments, it was a lot of nostalgia generated.
And not only that, it's not just 5th edition, you've got the original printings in there too. So it's a big
two
fat
different
book.
printings.
Yeah, it's a big fat book with various versions of the same adventure.
With designer commentary as well.
Oh, nice.
I've seen a copy of it. It's enormous as well. It's like nearly 400 pages thick. Massive, great big thing.
We're talking D4 damage, improvised melee weapon, yeah?
Yeah. I
Especially
think more
when
than
you
that.
look at the original adventure is like this little teeny tiny 16-page, thin cardstock cover.
Oh, yeah.
And
fantastic.
they managed to, but the book looks gorgeous.
Damn straight.
So
it's just how the RPG industry has grown since its birth over 40 years ago.
So, Darryl, do you want to take us into number 13?
Speaking of growth and bringing new people into the game, we have the Core Rules gift set that came out last month. That was the slipcover case that had the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide, plus the DM screen in a slipcover case that was available. If you went to hobby stores, you can get a special cover for it. And if you ordered online, it was just the same. And the retail price is the same price as if you're buying all 3 separately. So it makes it a really good jumping on point for new players who just, whether you need, which this time of year, whether you need a gift for someone you want to get into the game or who plays and never brings their own books ever, like my groups always never did, please start bringing your books to the game. Buy your own book and bring it to the game, please.
I do love those alternate covers. They are gorgeous.
Yeah, that same style alt cover they've been using for a lot of the products where they sell them in stores. Yeah. And it's like this almost not quite monochromatic, but it's got that feel of monochromatic to them.
I couldn't quite justify buying that for myself, but if someone were to buy that for me for Christmas, I'd be quite pleased. But I suspect no one will. But I can wish.
The big thing for players was it was the first printing that included the new errata that just came out in November.
Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to number 12? Number 12 is all about the growth of D&D, because one of the big news items was when it was announced by Wizard of the Coast when they were speaking to the Seattle Times back in May. A few stats that D&D has over 15 million players in North America alone. Now, if you think about that figure for a second, 15 million. Now, what's the population of North America?
About 350 million, 400 million. Give
So
or take.
we're talking 1 in 20 Americans, if you do the maths on that, which sounds implausibly high to me, but I'm sure it's true. I'm sure they wouldn't make it up. So 15 million players, 1 in 20 Americans are D&D players. That's a lot. That sounds high, doesn't it? Don't you think?
We've got 579 million according to the 2016.
Sounds about right.
Information.
So that all right. So that would make it slightly.
That'll be America, Canada, Mexico, and some parts of Central America.
So in that case, you're still talking about 1 in 12 no, 1 in 30 Americans.
Yeah,
That's still
Which
a lot.
is pretty impressive.
But the
the
other interesting stat that came out at the same time was that 40% of those people are women. 40%.
So we should be having 50.
Well, yeah, but the point is, it wasn't that long ago when that figure was about 10%. Certainly back in the era of like D&D 3rd edition and stuff like that, the figures that were coming out were 10% or less, and now it's up to 40%. And I think it's showing that D&D is definitely becoming more and more inclusive and more representative of the demographics of the people. Yeah,
even if they were always there, but it's the fact that they're also responding positively to surveys and participating in the community as well. Because the community is becoming more inclusive and more open. Women, people of color, LGBT, etc., are feeling more comfortable coming out and expressing themselves as fans of role-playing, as fans of D&D.
As they should.
What was also interesting, on the player acquisition front, an interesting stat came through that more than 50% of new players since 2014 got into the game by watching games online. More than half of them. That just shows how big things like Critical Role and all the other streaming platforms are, and how important they are to the growth of the industry.
Yeah, and things like Discord games as well. Like, it's such a major platform. It's not much. It's a sort of MSN Messenger-style chat program with the option of using voice. But yeah, even that has caused whole piles of people to get into it. And obviously, D&D Beyond does provide a lot of support for online gaming.
Right, let's move on to number 11.
Timeless, the new Dristo Erden trilogy by R.A. Salvatore. I think this was something that has popped up earlier on Amazon. It was a splash with Ian World, and then it took several months later before it was actually officially announced. It's got all your classic Dark Elf Drift, Dristo Erden, new trilogy, Swordplay, Danger, and so forth. Menzo Baranzan.
It's one of the stories that Salvatore's been wanting to tell for a long time, which involves Jaraxel and Dritzt's father, Zaknafane.
Is that
There are
Zaknafane?
so many Drizzt books now. I just can't even keep up with them, to be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely. And obviously Jarlaxle does make his appearance in Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Yep.
Because I think the original article was, Tuesday, 6th of February, and then it actually was only planned to release when, what was it, October time, Russ, when Dragon Heist came out?
Yeah.
Because I remember you saying at the time that it was quite a surprise because you thought it had come out already, but no, that was just Amazon leaking.
Yep.
So, shall we move on to the next one, which is number 10 for Darryl?
Number 10. Most players prefer humans without feats. This was just a bit of data that Jeremy Crawford had shared, where he talked about what they're seeing through various methods they're seeing, like D&D Beyond and other ways of character creation, that most people play humans and they don't use the optional feats system. Which, if you play D&D 5th edition, you know that humans have two variants, where one is you get +1 to all attributes, and one you get +1 to 2 attributes, and you get a feat. So apparently not a lot of people were going for the feats option.
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, when I originally reported the news item, I got it slightly wrong, because I thought he'd said most players preferred humans without feats, so that that was the humans without feats was the most popular character choice. It's actually two separate choices, unlinked. Most prefer humans, and most prefer playing without feats, but that doesn't necessarily make humans without feats the most popular character choice. It doesn't quite work like that, but there's a slight logical disconnect there, and Jeremy Crawford, I think, was slightly annoyed with me that I got that wrong. I was like,
he was also very insistent that elves and dwarves he recognised as being majorly important.
Yeah, apparently, they got a bit upset with me about that for some reason. I don't know. Whatever. People prefer playing humans, and they prefer playing without feats. No matter what they do with other race options and stuff, that's the most popular choice.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, feats are quite a lot of fun in customising your character, but on the other hand, you know where you stand with an ASI, like an ability increase. Mm-hmm. It will be guaranteed to be helpful. Whereas the feat, you could get something wrong. But yeah, that's interesting stuff. All right, which leads us to number
9.
Number 9 was Eberron, The Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, which appeared back in July on the DM's Guild in PDF format.
Yeah, this whole thing kind of got sprung on us too. I remember when it happened.
Yeah. So what initially happened?
Hey, we're doing Eberron. Here it is. You can go buy it.
So what initially happened? It was a slight leaky type thing. So what initially happened was people noticed that Eberron had appeared in the options on the back end of
I believe that
DM's
was
Guild.
David Floor. David Floor was the first one to notice that.
Right. And then very, very shortly thereafter, it was actually announced, and then the PDF dropped. So Eberron not only became available on DM's Guild for people to sort of set their adventures in and write content for, but you also got this PDF setting book, which Keith Baker, creator of the Eberron, was involved in writing, which makes Eberron. Because I think with 5th edition, there's been quite a lot of criticism that they're very, very focused on the Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms. An island outside of Forgotten Realms, but still in Forgotten Realms.
Well, they had
and we're making Ravenloft and Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, they had Ravenloft, but now they've had Eberron and they've had Ravnica, obviously. So they're definitely spreading out a little bit now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that Eberron was the number 9 most viewed, most popular D&D related RPG article of 2018. So number 8, Peter, that would make number 8 what?
That would make number 8 The Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Which, I must say, is actually one of the more exciting high fantasy settings that I've seen in quite some time. It's almost like we weren't even sure how to categorise this as a genre, were we, Russ? I mean, what do you reckon, Darryl? Is it like Majopunk? What is this? This city-spanning, almost Alderaanian-like world that has been created, stratified
there is a specific genre for this where it's not Magipunk exactly, because Eberron is Magipunk. That's lightning spells or powering trains kind of stuff. Ravnica is more traditional fantasy, but it's very urban city based. It's very akin to Waterdeep in that general style, but not remotely the same. It's a very large, very city urban. I would call it urban fantasy, except for urban fantasy is strictly a contemporary genre.
Yeah,
contemporary
it tends to be
modern day.
Settings. Yeah.
It is, but it is a fantasy. It is high fantasy in an urban setting. I want to say there's a word for that specific genre, but I cannot remember it right now.
Medieval urban fantasy? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you can edit yourself in sounding clever later.
Possibly.
You don't enough for us. No, absolutely. I just really liked the Shadowrun vibe that you're getting off it, but with the ease and simplicity of being able to use D20. It could. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, and there are definitely things that I'm like, okay, that'd be interesting. But I must say, I've actually obtained a copy of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Probably going to run it at some point, unless somebody offers to run it for me, in which case I'll leap on that with both hands.
And unsurprising, it's also one of the most beautiful books in terms of art because of the art from Magic the Gathering.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
I think we noted at the time the difference between that and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Whereas Dungeon of the Mad Mage had about one piece of art every sort of 10, 15 pages, and Ravnica has one basically every other page, or more, in fact, I think. It's like every 1.5 pages is a gorgeous piece of colour art. It's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely fascinating. And of course, for people who are fans of the Magic the Gathering setting, it's going to be amazing. Anyway, that takes us round to number 7.
Darryl.
Number 7 is the long-running, I believe this speculation started back in 2017, is Spelljammer coming to D&D 5th edition? It still has not yet, but there is so much evidence piling up that it's eventually going to pop up somewhere in some way, shape, or form.
It's basically Easter egging itself all over the place, isn't it? Is what it's doing. So it's
with the Mind Flayer captain.
And part of me sometimes wonders if are they just playing with us and it's just never going to come. but I don't know. But yeah,
Look, don't test me. I want my giant miniature space hamster, or even my miniature giant space hamster, largely so I can use that immortal line. Go for the eyes, boo. Go for the eyes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little tiny reasons to sort of think maybe it's coming, but no single thing is compelling enough that you could put your hand on it and just say, yeah, all right, Spelljammer is definitely coming. But so many tiny little hints that when you add them all together, you think, maybe. But who knows? They haven't announced it. It's just a lot of hot speculation right now, isn't it?
Yep.
I imagine if an announcement is coming, they're probably going to allow the Christmas and post-Christmas period to go through and allow the fact that they have dropped Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and Ravnica in the space of, 2 months less?
Yeah, their pattern usually is closer to February and March for the next big announcements. Usually so.
Yeah.
Well, they'll presumably have another big stream at some point next year because they're doing that yearly now, and I assume that will announce whatever the next big setting is at least.
Yeah, if we're seeing Spelljammer, it will be summer next year.
If. There's a big if.
If. Number 6.
Number 6 was Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Big old mega dungeon announced earlier this year, came out in fall 2018, earlier this year. I think everybody who listens to this podcast probably knows all about it because we've talked about it at length.
Exhaustive length.
Yeah, a 23-level dungeon which takes you from levels 5 to 20, character levels 5 or 6 to 20, I believe. Sorry, containing lots and lots and lots of different themes, each level has a different theme. I think if people want to know more about that one, they should just listen to our podcast about it, which was only 2 weeks ago. Was it 3 weeks ago?
No. It was almost a month. It was last month.
Wow, was it?
It was last month.
Feels more recent than that. Okay, fair enough. In at number 6 was the second D&D product for fall 2018, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Nice big mega adventure there.
Which I really think that was if they had to release 2 products back to back, doing Ravnica and Dungeon of the Mad Mage were the 2 products to do because they're very similar but very different audiences at the same time. Ravnica is more for Magic the Gathering fans as well as D&D fans. It's a lot more bright, it's a lot more colorful, while Dungeon of the Mad Mage is a lot more streamlined. It's appealing more to the old school dungeon crawl fans. A lot more stripped down.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5 was the next Dungeons & Dragons storyline, which was Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Yes.
Which, again, interesting book offering multiple different ways of replayability, which is not something I've generally looked for in a D&D book before. I understand Curse of Strahd did it very well with its Tarokka deck. But yeah, here we are, Waterdeep. You've got dragons as in money, apparently, and you're attempting to conduct a heist. And that's initially supposed to be a feeder into Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So having the 2 books released very close together means that you've got a real opportunity to do like a 1 to 20 campaign, which is often promised, very rarely delivered.
Okay, let's move on to number 4, shall we?
Number 4, the announcement of the new D&D designer, Kate Welsh. Kate Welch has a long history in gaming, both in video games and in tabletop games, as well as streaming. She was hired on as new designer, and there was a lot of controversy in questioning her credentials, which has never really happened before with any other new hire. And I can't understand why Kate Welch
would that be?
Have gotten this much scrutiny when others did not. But
I'm sure it must be entirely because it's some sort of ethics in game journalism. Oh, sorry, that's something different I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It must be entirely because it's very important to make sure that every single new hire at D&D or Wizards of the Coast is properly qualified, and certainly we wouldn't want them to be disqualified for any reason whatsoever. No, Well done to Kate, and certainly hats off to Wizards of the Coast for employing someone.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, no one's been questioning her since her products have been coming out. Her work's been outstanding.
Well, of course it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like, you don't get to work at Wizards of the Coast if you're a slacker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we move on to number 3?
Yes.
So,
All right.
number 3 was all about a tweet from Mike Mills. Could you believe that was the third most talked about topic of the year? Mike Mills made a tweet.
Yes. I could believe that, actually, unfortunately. Yeah.
So this was in September. It wasn't just one tweet, to be fair. It was a big, long tweet thread. It was actually a page of text. So Mike Mills talked about D&D and its overall design goals and how that's changed from previous editions. Obviously, I can't really, I don't know, read it all out, but I think probably the thing that really drove the popularity of it was the phrase, if you make a game for blah, 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 be ready and willing and able to deal with beep. It's also why D&D got out of the business of trying to fix obnoxious people.
I can see that. I can see that there might be a certain amount of that being linked to absolutely everywhere where problem players are discussed.
Mike Mills was
that's a lot of license.
subtweeting.
Ooh, really? What does subtweeting mean, Darryl? Because I don't actually know.
Subtweeting is this vaguely related to vague booking, but it's where you're talking about someone without actually naming who it is that you're talking about. So he was obviously talking about a few communities that seem to be, I don't want to say pandering, but pandering to a specific type of audience that ends up creating a community around those products, which is inherently toxic.
Right, we are on number 2 now. So this is back to settings. Nathan Stewart, who's Wizards of the Coast brand director, back in June said that Wizards of the Coast plans to open up a couple more D&D settings for play. So this is kind of a repeat of earlier news items that we've mentioned. They kind of fold into this because I think essentially what we're talking here is Eberron and Ravnica.
Yeah, basically.
But this is when the hints first started coming out about these back in June, and him just mentioning that there are 2 more settings coming out made the news and got a lot of play, a lot of discussion. I mean, the thread on it at the moment has, quite sinisterly, 666 comments on it. So what he said at the time was, we have 2 surprises I think hardcore D&D fans are really going to love coming this summer. And then I think we got 1 surprise that's going to release later this year that we've not told anyone about. We're going to announce it in July. So obviously they announced all that and it all came out. But the amount of attention that got at the time was phenomenal, even though it was literally just we've got something to announce later. It was an announcement of an announcement of an announcement, essentially. So,
well, are you sure you want to dive into that pre-announcement now, having a pre-announcement announcement? Because otherwise people might not get the birds.
Yeah. So the second most talked about news item of the year was 2 new settings for D&D coming, and we now know what those were.
Yes.
And then we can move on to number 1, and I think it's Peter's turn to tell us what the number 1 news item of the year was.
The number 1, the single most popular item, the one that received the most eyeballs on the whole of the Ian World website, would be Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes. It's essentially a set of material for GMs to work with, filled with a vast array of exciting new demons, devils, and other monsters. There's a little bit of stuff in there for the players as well, but on the whole, it's essentially almost like a new monster manual for 5th Ed D&D. So it's been very eagerly anticipated and very well received.
What was quite funny about this was, so instead of the word tome on the front cover, the original printing had the word tomb. If you got the article in front of you, if you have a look at Mike Mills and I think, is that Nathan Stewart? I'm not sure who that is. Sitting there holding up the books.
Yes, Tomb of Foes.
On the original printing, it actually says TOMB, Tomb of Foes, rather than Tome of Foes. And they actually only realised that during the live stream when people pointed it out, which was quite amusing. Luckily, I think those were just proof copies. At least I hope they were, not an entire print run. At which point, I imagine, wouldn't it have been easier just to change the publicity around it rather than reprint the print run? But
Yeah, because WotC print runs are huge.
Yeah,
to have to pulp one of those would have.
Yeah, so they
would have pivoted on the marketing.
Yeah, I'm assuming those were just a couple of proof copies from a very, very short print run, and the actual book did come out with the correct title, Tome of Foes, not Tomb of Foes. It came out. It had its own special cover as well. Exclusive cover for, I think, was that just from game stores, or was that available in Amazon as well?
That was if you ordered it through Wizard Play Network store, they got the alternate covers.
Yeah. And it's a lovely book as well. I mean, I have it here. And did we do an episode on it? I can't remember.
Nope, it came out before.
Was it too early for that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely lovely book, crammed full of monsters, and it is officially the most talked about and most viewed and most read and most popular, not only D&D news item, but RPG news item of 2018.
It's an impressive result for them. I mean, I think at least some of it's going to be just due to the fact that they had at least half the monsters were CR 10 or above, and there's the advice on running high CR monsters, CR being challenge rating, and essentially what's used to calculate whether this monster will be a worthy foe for your party.
Yep.
And it's nice to actually have that, because a lot of this sort of thing isn't actually explicitly written down in the Player's Handbook or the DMG.
Right then, so that's it. That's our top 10 news items. So the top 10 D&D one, Modern Conan's Tome of Foes, the top 10 RPG one, Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Yes. Oof, what a ride it's been. Darryl, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Long episode.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been an absolute marathon, and I'm sure that the various spoilers where Russ reveals yet more of his plans for world domination will certainly be of interest.
Yeah. Right, shall we sign off? Because we have been going for 3 hours.
Absolutely. It's been a marathon podcast. But it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on. As I said, Darryl, brilliant to actually have your voice and your direct feedback as opposed to hearing about it only later when I'm playing back the podcast to listen to what it sounds like. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it is a little bit different to be able to talk directly instead of using the inserted in post voice of God. Where no matter what the argument is, I always get the last word because I'm the one that's exporting the audio file at the end.
And yet this trend continues. Please don't make us sound too bad.
Right, let's sign off. So that's the end of the podcast for the week. It's pretty much the end for the year, because next week is a special sketch compilation.
Yep.
So I guess this is the end, Russ.
The end of
the podcast.
I thought you
meant the end of the year.
The end of the podcast, the end of the year, the end of the world.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
And a bit
well,
of
someone hadn't gotten 0 so many times last week in the game. We wouldn't have had that singularity.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Peter.
What can I say? If Russ is going to ask me hard questions, that's really not on me. And also, whose design was it?
So, thank you everybody for listening. It has been wonderful having you on the show, Darryl.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming along. You are, of course, welcome back anytime. So that will be me signing off. So it is goodbye from me, Russ.
It's goodbye from me, Peter Coffee.
And it's goodbye from me, Darryl.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Listening to that drivel just made me feel nauseous. Maybe a spot of eyeball raking will make me feel a bit better. But which one shall I torture? I do enjoy Russ's screams, but Peter makes these wonderful gurgling noises when he's in pain. Decisions.